Somewhere south of the Red Sea, a container ship changes course. Nothing has hit it. It isn't in trouble. It simply turned south, away from the shortest road to Europe and toward the long way around Africa. That turn will add about 3,500 nautical miles to the voyage and 10 days at sea. It will burn a fortune in extra fuel, and the crew chose it anyway. So did thousands of other ships. To understand why, you have to look at the narrow gate they are all going out of their way to avoid. The gate is called Bab al-Mandab. In Arabic, that means the Gate of Tears. The name is old. It comes from the passage itself, from wrecks and hard currents, and the plain danger of getting through, centuries before anyone ever pushed a container ship into it. Some stories tie the name to the sailors lost in these waters, others to older legends of disaster. Either way, it fit the geography then. It fits it again now. It sounds like something off an old map. What's happening there today does not. Bab al-Mandab sits between Yemen, on the Arabian side, and Djibouti and Eritrea on the Horn of Africa. At its narrowest, it's only about 20 miles across. And it isn't one clean opening. An island called Perim sits right in the mouth of it, splitting the strait into two channels, a wide one on the African side, and a narrower one against the coast of Yemen. A scatter of smaller islands crowds the water nearby. That matters, because it means the traffic is even more concentrated than the 20-mile number suggests. Ships funnel into marked lanes, through gaps a fraction of that width. This is the southern door of the Red Sea. Head north through it and you reach the Suez Canal, and beyond that, the Mediterranean and Europe. Turn around and you're back in the Gulf of Aden and the open Indian Ocean. On a world map, it's a thin blue thread. Up close, it's a tight, broken piece of water that every ship between Asia and Europe has to thread if it wants the short way. Hormuz moves energy. Bab al-Mandab moves nearly everything else. In a normal year, something like 12% of all the world's seaborne trade passes through this one strait, and close to a quarter of the world's container traffic, the steel boxes stacked on those ships, moves through here, on its way to or from the Suez Canal. Think about what's inside them: clothes, car parts, electronics, grain, fertilizer, the one component a factory in Germany needs to finish something that was half built in Vietnam. This is the part people miss about global trade. It isn't mostly planes and trucks. It's ships, enormous, slow, and cheap, and almost everything you own spent part of its life inside a steel box on one of them. A large share of those boxes pass through a 20-mile gap between Yemen and Africa. You would think it takes a navy to threaten a waterway this important. It doesn't. The Houthis, the group that controls much of northern Yemen, hold ground less than 60 miles from the strait, and they've spent years building the one kind of force that matters here. Not warships, anti-ship missiles that can reach across the whole width of the water, armed drones, explosive boats they can steer into a hull with no crew aboard, and sea mines drifting where no one can see them. They can't occupy the strait like a navy, and they don't have to. They only have to make one captain, alone on a dark bridge at 2 in the morning, unsure whether the next mile of water is safe. In shipping, that uncertainty is the weapon. It doesn't take a hit, it takes the fear of one. It's 2 in the morning. The bridge is dark except for the radar, Yemen is just a line of lights off the port side. A message arrives from the shipping company. Another follows from the insurer. Somewhere ahead, a vessel was hit 2 days ago. For the company, it's a financial question. For the government back home, it's strategic. But for the crew on that bridge, it's the simplest question there is. Nobody orders them to turn around. They only have to decide whether the next mile is still worth it. That is not new. Back in late 2023, ships in this same water started coming under attack. Missiles and drones went after tankers and cargo vessels. Some were hit, some were boarded, a few sailors were killed. The response was a coalition of warships, an international naval mission, sent to escort traffic through the southern Red Sea and shoot down what it could. When several countries send their navies to keep one strip of water open, that tells you something. It means the danger was never theoretical. It means governments had already decided this route was worth defending with force. Traffic fell, then it steadied. Then, in 2026, the threat came back. So when the new warnings arrived, they didn't land in calm water. They landed on a route that had already learned to be afraid. There's a reason the whole region feels tense at once. To the east is the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important oil chokepoint. In 2026, it's been shut on and off for months. We made a whole separate film about it. Hormuz is the oil gate. Bab al-Mandab is the trade gate. One decides how much crude can leave the Gulf. The other decides whether Asia and Europe can trade the short way or the long way. When both are under pressure at the same moment, the map stops looking like infrastructure. It starts looking like leverage. Here is what makes this different from an ordinary blockade. Nobody has to close the strait. The ships can simply stop using it. Because there is another way from Asia to Europe. You sail south, all the way down and around the bottom of Africa, past the Cape of Good Hope and back up the far side. It's safe, it's reliable, and it is brutally long. That detour adds 10 to 15 days to a voyage that should have taken about a month. It burns hundreds of extra tons of fuel per ship, and it holds vessels in the wrong ocean for weeks at a time. That last part matters more than it sounds. Every ship stuck going the long way is a ship that isn't where it was supposed to be next. Schedules break, ports back up. The shortage spreads to trade routes nowhere near Yemen. When it happened in 2024, the cargo going through the Suez route dropped sharply, almost overnight. The strait stays open the entire time. The ships are just gone. And an open gate that everyone avoids behaves exactly like a closed one, except no one can ever point to the moment it shut. Follow that empty route north, and you arrive in Egypt. The Suez Canal is one of the most valuable shortcuts on Earth, but it only matters if ships enter the Red Sea to reach it. When they turn south for Africa instead, Suez loses them before they ever arrive. For Egypt, that's a national problem. The canal is one of the country's largest sources of foreign income, and when the ships stop coming, so does a chunk of the money that keeps the government running. For Europe, it's quieter, but it's everywhere. Every late shipment, every emptier shelf, every factory idling while a part it ordered weeks ago sits on a ship somewhere off the coast of Africa, still days from port. And none of this is a forecast. It already happened once. After the attacks that began in late 2023, the oil and fuel moving through Bab al-Mandeb collapsed, from roughly 9 million barrels a day down to a little over 4, more than half the flow, gone in under 2 years. Not because the strait ever closed, because ship after ship, company after company, looked at the risk and decided it wasn't worth it and left. That is the whole point of this story. You are not watching a wall come down. You are watching a route quietly empty out, one careful decision at a time. Countries have spent decades trying to escape one chokepoint, only to find another one waiting. Saudi Arabia is the clearest example. Most of its oil sits in the east on the Gulf, right behind the Strait of Hormuz. So the Saudis built a way out that doesn't depend on Hormuz at all, a pipeline clear across the country, to the port of Yanbu on the Red Sea. But the escape from one gate empties straight into another. Oil pumped to Yanbu to avoid Hormuz still has to sail down the Red Sea and out through Bab al-Mandab to reach most of its buyers. The plan to get around the first gate runs directly through the second. Beyond the region, the damage spreads along the shipping lanes themselves. Europe brings in a huge share of its goods through this corridor, so European prices and delivery times feel it first. Asian exporters watch their shipping bills climb and their delivery promises slip. In the United States, it shows up quietly, in freight rates, in fuel, in the slow background pressure that nudges up the price of almost everything that arrives by sea, which is almost everything. None of these places border Yemen. None of them are at war. They just happen to depend on a route that a small force, 60 miles away, can make feel unsafe. It's easy to think this is far away. Shipping is invisible. Most people never think about a strait between Yemen and Africa and never will. But the lanes don't need you to think about them. They follow you anyway. A tanker reroutes, fuel costs tick up, a container arrives 10 days late, a factory waits on the part inside it, a product ships a week behind, a shelf restocks slower, a price moves a little on something ordinary in a store thousands of miles from any of this. That's the strange thing about a chokepoint. Almost no one sees it, and almost everyone pays for it. And then there is Yemen. It's easy, in a story about trade and shipping and insurance, to talk about this strait as if the only thing at stake is the price of goods somewhere else. But the country beside the gate has been at war for most of a decade. It is already one of the poorest, most broken places on Earth, dependent on aid that arrives through these same waters. Every escalation at the strait raises the risk for the ships. It also raises the risk for the people who have the least protection from any of it, and the least say in whether it happens. For most of history, controlling a place meant holding it, putting soldiers on the ground, owning it outright. Bab al-Mandab is a reminder that it doesn't work that way anymore. You don't have to hold this strait to control it. You don't even have to close it. You only have to make the world afraid to use it, and the ships will redraw the map themselves, sailing thousands of miles out of their way, around a gate that is still, on paper, wide open. The name is centuries old. Once, the Gate of Tears described the water itself. Now it describes the decision every captain has to make, whether to enter it at all. There is a second gate on the other side of the peninsula, Hormuz, the oil gate. It closed a different way and it still hasn't reopened. That film is on the channel now. If this one was worth your time, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which chokepoint we should take apart next.